the world changes soon. Can get a doobie on a plane, but there's Uzis in our schools. Every dude who touched a boob or a booty getting me too. What you expect from the kids who went to Hooters after school? We're all triggered and defensive, we're all racist and we're sexist. We all grew up watching South Park. How are we offended? Now being fat is beautiful? Name a thing that you can't do? Jumping jacks, run a mile, live past 42? Man, it used to be cool to just flip a bird to the system, and now it's trendy to be triggered and pretend you're a victim. It's my race, it's my weight, it's because I'm a Christian. I hate the internet and anyone who has an opinion. And everybody angry if you say white. Okay, fine. Pass me the brush and I'll paint my face to the shades right. Let's talk about abortion.
Welcome to the Red Pill Sports and Entertainment Show. I am your host, Albert Apache, and as usual, brought to you by Open Source, Self-Defense, Fitness, and Grappling. Okay, guys, so we're going to continue on with our How Do You Get Better at Jiu-Jitsu Faster. I'm kind of going to backtrack in this episode because I kind of made an assumption that you were already at a quality jiu-jitsu school. So we're going to talk about some of the things that you need to look for in a quality jiu-jitsu school. We're going to talk a little bit about the craziness around all of the Corona bros, if you will, right? All the Corona mania, all the Coronaphobia. We're going to talk about some disturbing trends when it comes to jiu-jitsu coaches being upset about students leaving, and then we'll wrap it up. So hopefully you enjoy the episode. Make sure you like, you subscribe, and if you disagree with something, comment down below. You have questions, comment down below. I try to react and comment back to everybody. All right, guys, with that, let's go ahead and get into the program. Okay, let's get into this segment. So, first and foremost, let me apologize. I must have gotten a little bit ahead of myself last week. I made an assumption that you were already at a legitimate or quality academy, or that you had a quality coach for jiu-jitsu. And since this is all about getting better at jiu-jitsu faster, let's rewind a bit and talk about how do you find a quality jiu-jitsu academy or instructor. So first and foremost, there are going to be two major things that you're looking for, okay? And, these things are probably the most important things you're looking for. So number one is going to be, does the academy or the instructor offer a fundamentals program? Now, this can be structured in many different ways. It could be that you have fundamentals classes set on certain days at certain times. It could be that there is a quote-unquote drilling class, right? Essentially just means that you're running through specific drills and that's all you do for the entire class. It could be that the way that the class is structured as a whole is that it progressively ramps up through the week. In other words, you start off from a specific position on Monday, you do some very, very basic movements from that position, and then as the week goes on, things become more and more complicated until you get to a more maybe extravagant series of movements by Friday, right? So those are different ways that a fundamentals program can be instituted. Now, an academy cannot have a fundamentals program and still be a legit program. That being said, I would like you to be completely aware of what you're going into if that's the case. You're going into a place where they believe that the best way to learn is to throw you into the shark tank, into the deep end of the pool, and let you sink or swim, okay? And if you like that, if you enjoy that, well, then so be it. You can go that way. Now, the problem is that many people get discouraged this way. You will see a wild fluctuation in members at an academy like this. Academy members will join and drop and join and drop and join and drop. You'll have classes sometimes that are, 20, 40 deep, and then in a month or two be back to, you know, 8 people, and then they'll jump back up to 20, 40 deep and then drop back down to maybe 10 people. So it has a high turnover rate when there's no fundamentals program. Now, that's not to say that the school isn't good, and that's not to say that the academy or instructor isn't good. It just means that most people have a hard time adapting to the Shark Tank approach of learning. So it just is what it is. So moving on. The next thing you want to look for. So we said you wanted to look for a fundamentals program. The next thing you're looking for is sparring. Is there live rolling at the academy that you're looking at? Okay. This is super important. Live rolling is a cornerstone of jiu-jitsu training. Any academy or certified training program, facility that offers some kind of certified training program in jiu-jitsu that does not also have a live rolling session, a live rolling class, a live sparring class, that should raise an immediate red flag with you to whether or not this is a legitimate instructor and a legitimate program. Okay? I cannot stress this enough, so I'm going to say it one more time. It is a cornerstone of jiu-jitsu that you live spar, that you live roll. Okay? It's a cornerstone. Just is what it is. Now, that might make jiu-jitsu not for you, and that's completely fine. If you want to train invisible force martial arts and, by the force of your will that if you did the technique, it would work, well then, okay, so be it. That's your prerogative. That being said, that's not part of a good jiu-jitsu academy, okay? Everything gets pressure tested. Okay, and when I say pressure tested, what I mean is it gets tested against live resistance, against randomized resistance. In other words, when we live roll, that's when last time I talked about not being the what if guy, right? Going in and, well, what if, coach, and what if, okay? This is where your what ifs get answered. So now is your chance to ask your what ifs, but in a live scenario. So you wanted to know, well, when somebody's doing a scissor sweep, if I'm doing a scissor sweep, what if? Well, this is your chance to find out. They're doing a scissor sweep on you. Well, do that thing that you wanted to know, what if, and see what an upper belt does. See what a blue belt, a purple belt, a brown belt, a black belt, see what their answer or their response is for that. Okay? See how easy or not easy it is to use that resistance. What other ways does it compromise you and compromise your base? Okay? So, live sparring needs to be part of it. Now, a couple of things to mention that are subsets of these two ideas. Let's first talk about the fundamentals program. The fundamentals program should be being taught by, or can be taught by anybody who is a blue belt or above, okay? A fundamentals program should not be so complicated. It should not be so ridiculous that as far as technical know-how, that your blue belts cannot master the information, okay? If your blue belts can't master the information, most likely that fundamentals program is nothing of the sort, okay? Then it's not fundamentals. It's beyond fundamentals, maybe intermediate, okay? A fundamentals program should be the very building blocks of jiu-jitsu, the building block techniques. Part of a fundamentals program is, of course, going to get you comfortable with fighting off of your back because that's a position that's unique to jiu-jitsu. Fighting out of your guard, again, is a position that's unique to jiu-jitsu. It's going to, teach you how to start moving your body in a way that is quote unquote jiu-jitsu friendly. Okay. Now, with the fundamentals program, you also want to be making sure that your fundamentals program should be covering, your basic kind of ideas like explaining to you the jargon. Well, what does it mean to be in mount, and what does it mean to be in closed guard, and what do you mean by get an underhook and a crossface, and what do you mean by side control, and what's a half guard, and what's a quarter guard, and hey, I was YouTubing, coach. So these things should start to be deciphered for you, right, during a fundamentals class, so that when you get to a more intermediate or advanced class, there's not a ton of time being spent explaining things to you. This is a Kimura grip, right? Oh, grab them with a Kimura grip. Oh, underhook them here. Or scoop grip their leg. Okay, these kind of terminology should all be being covered in the fundamentals program, so that way, shrimp to your left, hip escape here. All of these little tiny terms should be explained during the fundamentals program, so that way, when you get into an advanced class, the coach is able to move at a much faster pace and cover more information because they're not having to explain jargon to you, right? They're not having to sit back and say, well, when I say shrimp or hip escape, what I mean is to move your hips like this, and then they have to demonstrate what they mean, and then you're like, oh, okay, and then they have to teach you how to shrimp, and you don't want to have to do that in an advanced class. All right, so a good healthy academy will have a good fundamentals program. Okay, so I hope that kind of explains even deeper the subsets of those ideas. As far as the sparring goes, subset things that you want to look for. So you've looked, you see maybe there is sparring. The next thing you want to look for is whether or not the coach, the person teaching class, actually spars themselves. I don't care if this is a black belt. I don't care if it's a purple belt. I don't care if it's, a brown belt, white belt, blue belt. Okay, I don't know why a white belt would be teaching class, but let's just say, okay, but if they're not sparring themselves, okay, there's a problem in that academy. Okay, I mentioned it before. It's a building block of jiu-jitsu. So it's imperative that your coach is sparring. If your coach isn't sparring everybody in the gym, there is a problem, okay? If he says, oh, well, I'm a little guy, so I only spar with guys like my size, that's a problem. If he's a bigger guy and he only spars with bigger guys and he does not have the control and he's like, I'm afraid I'll hurt you, little people, right? Smaller people, that's a problem. Okay, that means that, that's a red flag that tells you maybe this guy doesn't know how to control and maybe doesn't have the best technique, right? Maybe he's all about his power and strength, which jiu-jitsu is not about power and strength. All right. So these are all little red flags that you should set off in your head, and maybe this is not the right academy for you. Okay. And of course, I know there are sometimes extenuating circumstances. Oh, I got an injury from this or that or blah, blah, blah. Okay. But it will be really easy to know the difference between those, right? And people will say, you'll hear people talking, oh, coach, man, yeah, I bet you can't wait to get back to rolling or whatever. You'll hear. You'll be able to tell that this coach actually does roll, does actually spar. So they should be sparring with everybody, men, women, short, tall, whatever. Now, there is, like I said, some exceptions to those. There are, of course, the people who do not roll with the opposite sex. Okay, there are women who refuse to roll with men. There are men who refuse to roll with women. So you will come across that. Now, me myself, this is my personal prerogative. If my coach was that way and I was of the opposite sex, so let's say, like Coach Farasa Hobby will not roll with women, right? If I was a woman, that would be kind of a red flag for me. I don't know that I would want to pay the kind of money that, I'm sure a Farasa Hobby school would, command, to not actually get coached by him directly. So, to work with me personally, one on one, I don't know that I would want to pay that. So, that's something to keep in mind. If you go to a school where, there's a female coach, a female black belt, she's probably very, very good. Probably can teach you a lot about using technique. And you go and you pay a good amount of money to train there, and then she won't roll with you because you're a man, that might be a red flag to you. That might be something where you're like, well, I don't know if I want to pay this kind of money, even though she could be spectacular. She could be a world champion. Do you want to pay that kind of money for somebody who is not willing to work with you one on one? Right? So those are things to keep in mind. They are things that are, those are some legitimate reasons why maybe people won't roll with everybody. It is out there. But for the most part, as a generalized statement, the coach, the instructor, the professor of an academy should be rolling with everybody, right? And that includes people who are brand new and walk through the door. That includes people who walk in with gear all geared up and say, hey, I just wanted to drop in for a class because I'm from wherever. I'm a purple belt over here, or I'm a purple belt out of blah, blah, blah. Can I jump in class and get some rolls? And that's probably even a bigger telling tale, whether or not that person is a legit jujitsu person, right? Because if they're like, oh, I don't know if I can roll with you, and they try to avoid that person, usually means they're scared, right? That's usually what it means. So, anyhow, those are the things you want to look for. Now, as far as who should be teaching class, belt level wise, I leave that more up to, everybody's personal discretion. You'll come across blue belts that are super good, purple belts, brown belts that are amazing, just really amazing. And you'll come across some brown belts and black belts that are sufficient, but maybe they are older and they just are not the same killer. I mean, you can't just judge by who do they choke out or who chokes them out in a class, right? I mean, if you have a world champion level, right, at that level, blue belt, all right, he's a 20-year-old and he's competed in the worlds, and he goes against guys who are world champions, and he's a blue belt, and you have a brown belt instructor or a black belt instructor that's 50 years old, made his black belt when he was 40, maybe 45, whatever. And, that blue belt is going to push him. I can tell you that right now. That 20-year-old blue belt is going to make life tough on that black belt. He probably will catch him from time to time. Okay? It just is what it is. Jiu-jitsu is a lot about technique, but it levels the playing field. It doesn't make everything level. It just levels it out, right? Technique levels out the playing field. It doesn't make it perfectly flat. Okay. And I hope you understand what I mean by that. That black belt is going to be able to wrestle and fight with and roll with that blue belt at a very high pace. And If all things were equal and he didn't have jiu-jitsu, he wouldn't be able to at all. But because of jiu-jitsu, he will be able to. Generally speaking, that 20-year-old in shape alpha male is probably going to smash a 45, 50-year-old man most of the time, right? Out cardio him in, like, if they were two guys just horsing around in the backyard, probably just out cardio him and then smash him. Jiu-jitsu allows them to play a little bit longer because it does level out the playing field a bit because of technique. But that doesn't mean that that blue belt is still not athletically superior. So I hope you understand what I mean by that. So this is why I kind of leave it up to you as far as who is actually coaching, the technique, what color belt they wear. Color of belts nowadays in jiu-jitsu can be so misleading to how good somebody is. And even how good somebody is can be very misleading, you know, whether or not they're a good instructor, because sometimes you have a high, a black belt or brown belt that maybe isn't the best instructor because that's just not what they want to do. So they really don't concern themselves with how do they convey the information they've been collecting. So it does kind of depend on what you're looking for. So belt color for who instructs jiu-jitsu is not necessarily something that needs to be there. They don't have to be a black belt. They don't have to be a blue belt. They don't have to be a purple belt or brown belt. They just have to meet those other criteria, I think. Be willing to spar with everybody. They do spar with everybody. They have a live sparring class, and they are doing a fundamentals foundational program, right? And that is what it is. I think those other things are way more important than what the belt rank is of the person, because I've met purple belts, blue belts, brown belts that teach class, and they were really good at the things that they were teaching, like really good. Okay. And so, I don't think it has to be, a black belt, but that's my opinion. I leave that up to you. Like I said, to me, the bigger things are, is there a fundamentals program, and are they live sparring? Those are the big ones. All right, guys, that's all I got for how you get better at jiu-jitsu faster. I'm going to go ahead and cut out, and we'll go into the next segment. All right, so in this segment, we're going to talk a little bit about Tampa Bay mayor enlisting enforcement to identify and handle maskless Super Bowl fans. So the mayor of Tampa Bay, Jay and Castor, uh, basically, she is not happy with the fact that there were some Super Bowl attendees or fans festivities where individuals did not wear their masks, I guess probably the entire time. And she wants law enforcement's help in identifying these people and doing what exactly, I don't know. I mean, put them in jail. We had so many municipalities just letting people out of jail, rapists and murderers and, pedophiles out of jail because overcrowding and COVID. But you're going to put people that didn't wear a mask into jail. The bass backwards thinking of these people just boggles my mind. What this is it's a money grab. It's a revenue generator. They're essentially going to ask people to pay, money fines for having not worn a mask. That's what this boils down to. Is it's just flat out greed on the part of the mayor. Bygones. It happened. It's over. It's done with. And there we go. In her little press conference here, she says something that is one of the things that's really annoying to me. I do have a hard science degree. I do know how to collect data. I understand how, you know, experiments are designed. Been very up to date on the information that's been coming out on different journals and things of that nature. She says something in this statement which is akin to, what you would call common misconceptions, right? Misconceptions that a lot of people have, but we take them as truths or we take them as facts. Um, let's say for our show, we'll talk about it since we do a ton of grappling and jujitsu. Like a known truth or a known fact prior to 1993 was that, um, you know, you never want to go be on your back on the ground in a fight. You want to be on your feet at all times, at all costs. That was a known fact. Everybody knew it. Everybody knew it. Um, what's another known fact? Back in the day, it used to be that, mom's chicken soup was the best thing for your cold. Now, did we really know that, or are those things that we just assumed were good because it seemed to correlate with certain things, right? We didn't know. So, in her little interview here, she goes into, as everybody knows, wearing a mask dramatically reduces. Hold your horses there, lady. I mean, on the one hand, we hear from all these politicians that we need to follow the science, and then on the other hand, they go off saying dumbass shit that is not part of science, that has no scientific evidence. Now, is there anecdotal evidence? Can you say that there is anecdotal evidence that masks reduce the spread? I don't know that you can, if we're being 100% honest. The vast majority of the country is wearing masks. They are complying. I mean, compliance, even here, let's say I'm in Arizona, even here in Arizona, where they constantly want to make us sound like some kind of Wild West, laissez faire, bunch of cowboys running around with no masks. The reality is that on a day-to-day basis, I can tell you, I'm going out, I'm seeing people. When I'm out and about and I'm grocery shopping, I want to say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of probably about 90% compliance with the masks. If wearing masks, quote unquote, dramatically reduce the spread of COVID, then our case numbers should have dropped through the floor with a 90% uh, compliance rate. From what I'm seeing with other data that has been gathered across the country, it's very similar for most states. And it doesn't matter if it's a quote unquote red state, meaning Republican, or if it's quote unquote a blue state. All right, it doesn't matter. The compliance rates are right around 90% or so. Some are a little bit higher, some are a little bit lower. Yet across the country, okay, other than in more rural areas, if you look at, metropolitan to metropolitan areas, high traffic areas to high traffic areas, you're seeing a rise in cases. So, right now, the evidence does not support her claim that everybody knows that masks greatly reduce the spread of the infection. And, people want to point to certain, like, experiments that have been done, and then they want to call them studies. Okay? Yeah, just so we're clear, those terms have very specific meanings. When you do a study or you do an experiment or you write a paper, okay, all of those things have different meanings within academia. Now, I know that to the layman that do not care about academia too much and don't really pay attention to it, they can sound synonymous, and I get that. Or you can hear somebody say there's evidence, okay, to support. Okay, there's a correlation. Okay, you can hear those words. That doesn't mean it's the cause. Okay. For instance, you can make a correlation to the fact that when there's more churches in a metropolitan area, seems that in areas where there are more churches, there's more crime. Does that make a causation? No. Just means there are correlation. Means there may be something behind each thing, crime and churches, the number of churches, there may be something beneath both of those things that is driving each number. There's a correlation. There could be. Doesn't even mean that there is. It just means that there could be. So these kind of people just irk me when they say really dumb things like this. And beyond that, I mean, it's just one of those things where we really need to make up our mind so that we can be, the scientists need to make up their mind. Is this thing aerosolized or is it not? It's been a year, guys. It's been a year. And millions, maybe even billions, have already been thrown at this. And you can't answer the simple question to whether or not this infection is aerosolized for sure yes or for sure no. Because that would answer the question to whether or not any of these masks work. Because here's the dirty little secret, everybody. Okay, this is what they're not telling you. If this is aerosolized, these little cloth masks are doing next to nothing. These dust masks are doing absolutely nothing to protect us from COVID. If it is droplets, if it is transmitted by droplet, then there's some use there. But if it's aerosolized, it's not helping. How do you know this? When you're wearing your mask, do you still smell food? Do you still smell when something's burning? Do you still smell people's farts? Right? I mean, so if the mask isn't stopping those things, which are aerosolized, then it's not going to stop the virus if it's aerosolized. Okay, just plain and simple, guys. I know nobody wants to have these conversations, and they'll probably give me a strike on my channel for saying it, but I mean, it's just the reality. So, people like this mayor need to really understand what they're talking about before they open up their mouth. But, this sounds very familiar. She said something to the same effect about restaurants that are acting like bars. Well, it's time. It's time. Okay? I don't want to hear about more cases. I don't want to hear about, oh, there's new strains, this, and this. Okay? What I need to know is how lethal are they? Are they more lethal than the original strain? I don't care if they're a new case. I don't care, just like I don't care about the new strain of the flu. I don't care how many more cases of the flu there are. I just need to know, is it a more dangerous strain or not? And if it's not, then I don't care. Then we're no worse than we were before. I don't care if it's a new strain of the COVID virus. I just need to know, hey, is it more or less deadly? Or is it the same? Guess what? If it's less deadly, that's good news, people. That means it's mutating in the direction we would want it to. It's already mutating into an equilibrium state virus, which is good news. If it's, becoming more deadly, then that's a concern, and that's what I want to know. So anyhow, leave it to a politician. I don't even know if this female is left or right or Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian, but leave it to a politician to somehow find a way to put a damper on the Super Bowl. Um, Anyhow, that's what I got, guys. Gonna probably do one last piece and then we'll wrap up the program for this week. All right, so let's go ahead get into this segment. Um, so, Health Gracie Jiu Jitsu released a statement on instructors' racist outburst. So, in case you didn't know, Health Gracie's affiliate's name has kind of been under fire recently for a few different incidents, and now they have yet another um, issue that they have to deal with. So apparently, there was a coach that has an affiliate school in Natomas, California. His instructor's name is Manny Ray Gonzalez, as stated here on the jits.com website, and goes on that the Sacramento Bee reported that he used a racial slur and towards a former student's parent, and essentially they have an audio file of this. Um, the racial slur that is in question is, in fact, the N word. Apparently, the quote with the audio file goes something to the effect of, "I'm over here at the gym and I don't see you. If you really want it, you know where to find it, you dumb effing N-bomb." Right? So, bad look for Health Gracie. They did come out. They are distancing themselves from this particular instructor. They are rebuking this instructor. This is not Health Gracie themselves, and it is an affiliate school. It is not the actual main entity. Now, here's the problem, and this is why this is interesting to me. First of all, I do feel bad for. It looks like it's a young girl that was the student, and her father is the one that the instructor was insulting. So I do feel bad for her, but here's the issue in this next paragraph, right? The student, Dominique Brandon, or excuse me, that was the name of the gentleman who received the voicemail. Dominique Brandon was a man who received the voicemail, and he explained that his daughter had trained under Gonzalez for many years without issue. Then she switched schools. You're going to continue here to read, and apparently she switched schools in a competition. She beat somebody from her old gym, and then there was an explosion, obviously, of emotions here. Now, this guy goes on to talk about later on in his apology how this isn't him and this, that, and the other. Now, I don't know the guy, and maybe it really is out of character for him. Maybe he's going through something that we don't know about. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't excuse the fact that he was a jerk and an a-hole. Doesn't make it right. That being said, I want to put that point aside for just a second as far as, the racial slur part of this. Because I don't think this gets enough attention. It almost seems like it has to be to that extreme of racial slurs coming out for this issue to get attention. But that's the issue of the tribalism and the coaches that are over the top when they demand loyalty, unquestioned loyalty from their students while running a business. Okay, you cannot, on the one hand, sit here and pretend that you're running a business and business is business with your students, but then on the other hand, expect them to have some kind of special loyalty to you that they're not going to move on uh, to other schools. It just it's unrealistic. Okay, if business is business from your end, then business is business from their end as well. And what do I mean by this? You know, people switch academies, they switch schools for a number of different reasons. They switch schools because, you know, they move locations and they don't even have to move very far. You know, if they move their house, you know, 15 minutes in one direction or 15 minutes in the other direction, that could be a reason for them to change the school. And you know, some instructors, some you know professors take that very personally. Like, well, it's only 15 minutes. Well, you don't know what else goes on in that household. You have no idea how busy mom and dad are. You know, you have no idea how busy the husband is or the wife is if it's you know one of the spouses that is training. Um, you don't know, and you know, business is business when you're collecting the dues. Yet, you know, business is not business when it comes time for quote unquote loyalty from the student. You know, I understand that, you know, and this is what bothers me the most about, you know, in general about people that come to the United States. Okay? I've heard a lot of excuse making by Brazilians, you know, those that train jiu-jitsu, they come from Brazil, about, well, you don't understand in Brazilian culture this and in Brazilian culture that. And that's all well and good. And if I was in Brazil, you know, well, then yeah, I guess I got to live like I'm in Brazil, but I'm not in Brazil. I'm in the United States. I'm in whatever state I live in. And that's not how things are done here. And that's not the culture here. You know, we've always get these, you know, oh, ugly Americans, ugly Americans. They want to run all over the world and tell everybody to adapt to their culture. Well, yeah, because that's human nature. Clearly, everybody else does it. They come to this country and they want Americans to adapt to their culture. It's a human nature thing, right? So it just is one of those things where, you know, I don't know where the I mean, you know, I've talked to and I've seen many Brazilian instructors that are not this way. Um, so I don't know where this supposed, well, it's a Brazilian thing, right? I don't know where that comes from. And all in all, I feel like it's a lot of tribalism and it's excuse making for people that, you know, rightly so for their accomplishments in jujitsu, we put on a pedestal. But we can't seem to separate their jujitsu accomplishments and their jujitsu accolades from them as a person or their personal, you know, character. So we think that having to hold them in high esteem as a jujitsu practitioner means that we also have to hold them in high esteem as a human being. And that's just not the case, right? I mean, it's not the case with any athlete, with any coach. I mean, I can see a coach and I can think that they are a spectacular, um, you know, coach. That doesn't mean I think they're a great human being and that I agree with them on, you know, other issues. And I don't know what it is about, you know, human beings that we feel this way, that we have to do this, but really got to get over it. But back to the topic. You know, this kind of thing of coaches being fairly aggressive, uh, demanding of loyalty on and off the mat, to follow their direction, their rules, their uh, whatever you want to call it. Okay. On and off the mat, I just think is ridiculous. Like, I know that there are some coaches that will not allow their students to go to open mats at other facilities. And particularly if they have to pay any mat fees, because why would you go give them any business? And I just think that that's absolutely silly. It's absolutely silly. Um, you know, Me going to an open mat across the city has nothing to do with how I feel about my instructor, right? Maybe my buddy trains jujitsu and he trains across town and they have an open mat, and it's something I want to share with and bond with my buddy over is a couple of rolls. It has nothing to do with his instructor, has nothing to do with my instructor. And maybe that open mat is a time frame that works for both of us. And there's got to be a point to where, I feel like, jujitsu people have to be the ones to start calling this out and start making this not acceptable, okay? Because, everybody can be a little shocked or dismayed, but if we're being 100% intellectually honest, I don't think and maybe the truth is different, okay? I'm just saying, if I'm somebody who goes to this particular affiliate school and I heard this happened, immediately my first assumption is that this is not the first time this instructor has acted this way, and most likely it is who he is. Okay? I mean, just knowing human behavior, just knowing how human beings are, okay? I've got a total of 7 children, okay? I understand how people behave. There is one universal thing across the board with all 7 children. And if you include me and my wife, there's 9 of us in the family. That's a okay, decent sample size of people. We all have very different interests. We all have very different ambitions, likes and dislikes. But if one thing is for sure, what I do know is that behavior has somewhat of a pattern, and we all have somewhat of a pattern of behavior. And so if somebody reacts to a situation in a certain way, I can almost guarantee you that they've acted in that situation similar or to a similar situation similarly in the past. So, I mean, while I feel for this man, Mr. Brandon, and I think that, the racist tone and, is unacceptable, I also feel like this could have probably been avoided. There's a part of me that believes this could have been avoided had this earlier behavior been addressed. It bothers me that it takes this extreme of a behavior from a coach for it to get covered by Jits magazine. So had he called this gentleman and let's reframe the quote, and he says, "I'm over here at the gym and I don't see you. If you really want it, you know where to find it. You dumb effing idiot." Now, is that behavior that much better? Is that behavior any better? I don't think it's that much better behavior just because you take the N word out of it. And it's something that I believe the jiu-jitsu community as a whole needs to address. Um, Because honestly, it does seem that you see this a bit more, if I'm being honest, in the jiu-jitsu community amongst coaches than you do with, let's say, taekwondo or karate or whatever, Muay Thai. Now, maybe that's just my prerogative. Maybe I am, it's a perspective thing. Maybe I am too deep into it. And so, because I live in a world of jujitsu, that's all I see, and I don't really see the experiences of taekwondo, the world of competitive taekwondo, or the world of competitive Muay Thai or MMA or whatever. Now, I know that does happen at MMA gyms. I mean, but usually that's with actual fighters that are, at the very least, they're amateurs, but they're already fighting. I do know that. I've seen that. But when it comes to kids competing, I think this is getting out of hand. I do not want to see jiu-jitsu go down the road of some of the AAU basketball, some of the Pop Warner football teams. Okay. I do not, some of these soccer teams, okay, where the pressure on these kids and the politics involved is so ridiculously heavy. I want this to be a sport that is fun for kids. Kids should not be scared that of their coach or what their coach is going to think of them or their parents if they decide to move schools or they decide to move academies. I just think that that's really an unfair position to put a child. So anyhow, that's what I got on this topic, guys. Hopefully everything works out. Kudos to the Health Gracie Academy for shutting things down right away, getting out in front and owning up to, the fact that this was their instructor, not making excuses, rebuking the gentleman, immediately. That's what's needed more of. I'm hoping the Health Gracie, affiliation program, the main gym, main instructors actually go forward and go a little bit deeper with this and not just be about, like I said, make it not just about the racist comment, but even the attitude that you have to somehow be demeaning or abusive or verbally abusive or intimidating towards somebody who decides that they want to train at a different academy. That's not professional, and and jiu-jitsu really should be approached from a professional point of view if you're going to run an academy. So anyhow, that's what I got. Let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. Well, my friends, unfortunately, I lost track of time. That is all the time we have for today's episode. So, once again, please, if you like the content, if it's brought you any kind of value, or even if you disagree, please comment down below. Please like and subscribe, follow the show. And you know what? Questions, comments, suggestions for upcoming episodes would be much appreciated. So, remember, guys, be practical, be purposeful, get fit with a purpose.
I'm praying that the world changes soon. Can get a doobie on a plane, but there's Uzis in our schools. Every dude who touched a boob or a booty getting me too. What you expect from the kids who went to Hooters after school? We're all triggered and defensive. We're all racist and we're sexist. We all grew up watching South Park. How are we offended? Now being fat is beautiful. Name a thing that you can't do. Jumping jacks, run a mile, live past 42. Man, it used to be cool to just flip a bird to the system, and now it's trendy to be triggered and pretend you're a victim. It's my race, it's my weight, it's because I'm a Christian. I hate the internet and anyone who has an opinion. And everybody angry if you say white. Okay, fine. Pass me the brush and I'll paint my face to the shades right. Let's talk about abortion. Sorry, tell me how this works. Bacteria is life on Mars, but a heartbeat isn't life on Earth? Weird. People are so stupid.